adoption affects 1 in 4 people in some way.
Yes, it is. It is quite a large issue. 1 in 4 people in the country are not necessarily adopted themselves, but they might have some sort of direct connection, which means that they might eventually become an adoptive parent themselves later on in life, or perhaps that they have actually got an adoptive sibling that they either know about, or some cases they don't know about until again much later on, and they're very good friends with somebody who's adopted, and so the issues will also affect them later on. In my particular case, I was adopted, but it was all arranged actually before I was born. So my birth parents had made arrangements and made the decision that they were going to relinquish me, soon after birth, which was the done thing way back then in the 70s. Things were done a bit differently than they are now. And my adopted parents had been through the sort of vetting process and were on the list, and we'd all been matched up by the agency that worked for us at the time. And so within 6 weeks of me sort of being born, I think I spent the first 6 weeks at a home with my birth mum, and then the handover sort of happened, and then I went off with my adoptive parents and their 2 elder brothers, my 2 older brothers.
So tell us about your adoptive parents, because it was
well,
pretty obvious that you were adopted to outsiders.
Well, it is. That's the curious thing. I'm one of a small group of adopted people, subsection called transracially adopted. You can also be transnationally adopted. That's quite a lot in the media at the moment. People like Madonna and other celebrities who are sort of doing this, which basically means that you're growing up with a family that's not your own inherent racial group. So I was brought
Angelina Jolie as well.
Of course, well, she's doing the whole rainbow family thing. But that means that I was brought up actually on the south coast in Hampshire by a pair of white parents who'd already got 2 boys before they adopted me. But they then actually continued to have a few more children as well, and they had 3 more after me, so I'm one of 6.
So what was their reasons for adopting?
Oh, good Lord!
You often think that people adopt because they can't have children themselves, but obviously
people do it for different reasons, and I think back then there was a sort of an effort between the church and the state to try and give a whole load of, supposedly, as they called them back then, and excuse me if this language is offensive for anybody, but unwanted mixed race babies. Right. So my birth mother was white and my birth father was Jamaican, as I found out later on. Right. And it was seen at the time, literally, when I saw my old records, I mean, such incredible language was used then, and I say it probably was offensive, but we were seen to be, went down on the record as being unadoptable because no one would want us, apparently, because we wouldn't fit into either racial group. Yeah. Now, there are actually more of us out than you would recognise, because there were families, who were obviously taken from the white community, particularly if they were churchgoers. So the church had an awful lot to do with trying to find good homes, as they found it, for unwanted babies, as the simple equation went. So quite a lot of us ended up all around the country.
Now, even though you were a different race and ethnicity than your brothers and sisters and your mother and father...
My brothers.
Your brothers, sorry. Yeah. Did you find that affected your childhood, or was it very happy and loving?
I grew up, and I would say I had a very happy and ideal childhood, mainly due to the fact, for the first 8 years of it, I had no idea I was different.
People might find that quite astounding that you say that.
Yeah, but it's not uncommon. I have since, through after adoption, got in contact with some other adopted people and also transracially adopted people, and actually we realised we've got some other sort of really unusual perspectives which we do share, because I was literally the elephant in the room no one mentioned, because it's, as you say, it's so obvious to everybody else that it wasn't.
But for you, it was normality, wasn't it?
Yeah, there weren't any mirrors in our house.
Did you know?
When you're a child, just to the age of 8, you don't really look in mirrors. You
very
don't
simplistically.
Very simplistically. So it was me and my 5 brothers, and the biggest difference between me and them was the fact that I was a girl and they were boys. So actually, the whole racial thing didn't come until much later on, and my parents had to tell me, I say, at the age of 8, because I think I was beginning to get a bit vulnerable then, because obviously I was going to be moving schools and all this sort of stuff, and maybe come across some things I didn't understand, because I didn't understand that I wasn't from my parents, because you know at that stage love was enough. But
It never
it's not
occurs to you
only
to
enough.
question it.
Exactly. You don't. Children don't.
No.
So you had a great upbringing, you
Yeah.
great adoptive family,
Yeah.
And then 2 years ago, when you were
Yes,
35,
moving things on, you know,
You got
quite
a
a few
letter.
years, I got a letter out of the blue, and it was just busy running around as you do. I think I'd just come off doing a tour gig the night before, so we'd been driving all the way through the night from London. So I got up in the middle of the morning the next day, letter on the mat with the bills, opened it up, and it was my world just stopped. It was like, you know, are you this person born in such and such? You know, we'd like to make contact with you. Now, it wasn't directly from my birth parent, but it was like your mind races here. You've either won the lottery, or there's somebody that's died that's left you a lot of money, or in my case, it was going to be, well, is this about adoption? The only way to do it was actually to start the whole process, and you don't know.
So it wasn't a personal letter, it was something that you had to go through a chain
No, it was
of
done
events
through
to-
this agency, and again, I'd recommend always having a mediation thing, because all of a sudden a whole great big can of emotions had been opened up for me, but also for all the other members of my family. And I've got a large adoptive family, and it was my parents that's affected, it was my brothers, it was all the people that I know, because it's to do with family and family
Of course it
ties.
is.
But at that particular point, all you have is suddenly a great big chasm of questions, and you don't know. And it took me a period of time to get all the answers.
I was going to say, were your adoptive family supportive of this?
When I got a chance to speak to them, because it's not something you really want to do on the phone either, and I responded to that. I got a response very quickly back from that. So within 2 days, I was on the phone to an agency worker who said, "Oh, we've got all your details on file. There is somebody who wants to make contact with you." I said, "Well, don't do anything yet. Let me come and see what's there." So I was trying to sort of protect myself, because I didn't know who wanted to make contact at that stage, or why, or what any information was. So I went to the file, and then I spent a very traumatic time actually finding out the reality of what happened after I'd been given up.
Now, unfortunately, we are running out of time, which is such a shame because there's so much more to your story, but you have actually been summing up your emotions or trying to express your emotions through poetry. That's right, isn't it?
Yes, indeed. I've the whole reunion process, that was the beginning stage and went on for me for about 3 months. I documented this whole roller coaster, because as soon as you find out a new piece of information or have another conversation with another member of your family, your perspective on things change. And so I did, for my own sanity, actually record all this in poetry in a collection, which is hopefully going to come out next year. And I now work with some prospective adoptive parents about trying to illuminate some of the issues from the adoptee's sort of point of view about having contact with the birth family and keeping sort of the channels open.
Okay, would you like to just read us finally one of your poems?
As we are running out of time, just before you do that, just to give some background on it, when you did actually meet your birth mother, she was married to your birth father.
Oh yes, well
You've
yes.
got
To cut
several-
that,
lots of
we'll cut to the end. Which is when I did meet them through this mediated process. I end up having the absolute fairy tale sort of story, and it turned out that my birth mother did get married to my birth father 2 or 3 years after they gave me up for adoption, and continued having a family. So having grown up with 5 blonde-haired, blue-eyed brothers, I suddenly found out I had 3 full flesh blood, you know, looking like me, sisters, and another birth brother as well. And we had, as part of the union process, we all got together, and it was quite incredible.
Fantastic.
Really, suddenly facing all of that, you know.
So it's a blessing that you've now got an extended family.
Very, very extended family. Christmases are very difficult. Story said it's bad before, when it's really difficult now.
As I said, could talk about this all day because it's fascinating, but we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, this is just the beginning moment, and the collection is called How to Weave Time. It's just happened. The unexpected white envelope cast on my black welcome doormat. Tears slip and splash. Were you born in so-and-so in the early part of such and such? The details disappear again. It's all too far-fetched, too much. I was, so I did. Reply by return. Prick the portly red post box. Dither. Drop in the stitch, then forget about it again. It looped back by phone call from the agency. The law's changed, you know, a few months ago. A birth parent has been making inquiries. I stand immobile. Slip and splash. Your mother's been registered to make contact with you for over 10 years, and you siblings too. Oh, and it's your dad who's the one who was black. He's still about and wants in on the act. Stop. I cease her jubilant babbling. Sisters? Brother? Mother? sisters! I can't hear any more from a stranger who knows more about me than I do. I fix a trip so they can tell me face to face where mine came from.